So I want to talk a bit about, I want to get into the notaries. I definitely want to talk about the IRS and primarily the trust. And because there's a lot of misnomers about the notaries, you see, the notaries has an awesome responsibility unknowing to them. And that's unfortunately, but when they go into the history of notaries, the notaries was commissioned by kings, and they were actually their sidekick. I mean, kings entrusted the notaries better than anyone else. So, and it was always when a king had to send out a messenger, the only way that we knew the messenger, it was the document that came from the king was authentic. It came through a notary. So a notary has the ability to authorize all documents. And here's the beauty about the notaries in recent affairs, especially when it comes to debt collectors. The notaries, when you have any particular debt, if someone is notifying you that they are attempt to collect a debt, you can actually take it to the notary, have the notary authenticate that account, at which case they cannot. So the notary can come in and say, I'm sorry, where is the original for this debt? Because for you to make claim on it, you have to show the original. And when the notaries are getting involved, they tend to want to back out. So, and I'm hearing from quite a few people that when they have used the notary to intercept the debt collector's effort, almost they just scurry and run and try to sell it to another debt collector. So that's how really effective the notaries are. As a matter of fact, I've gotten a great number of feedbacks from my students and others who have began using the notaries, and the overwhelming response they're calling me and saying, my God, for the first time, these agencies are literally responding to our request, whatever that request will be. And so it's very surprising because it makes all the difference, because now you're doing something that they recognize, that they can communicate with, and that's that neutral party, which is the notaries. So the notaries, as a matter of fact, the clerk of the court, that role technically belongs to a notary. But they dumped down the educational level of the notary and gave that position to gave that to a clerk of the court. They're not authorized by the state to authenticate documents. Only the notaries are. They are the eyes and ears of the Attorney General of any given state. Only they can authenticate any document. So what's going on in the courts is the procedures are even incorrect there, because it should be notaries that they're not using them. As a matter of fact, in most cases, some clerk of the courts downright just don't even acknowledge a notary, and it is the notary who has tremendous power. So, and that's where the fallout is, and then the notaries are unaware of their enormous job description, so they don't know, to
their
go
civic duty was never explained to them, as well as their history. About when in our history did clerk of court start taking over where notaries were?
I haven't had much chance to go back into the history to find exactly what year all of that had taken place. I have a notary. There's notary manual with the entire history on it. So right off the top of my head, I'm unable to recall what that is. But it was, I'm going to say early. I want to say after 1933, kind of the road.
Probably in 47.
47.
47, after everyone was back, and the notaries that had died off in the war, and all of those people that were running would have gone back to get civil service jobs, and they would have just filled in the civil service jobs. All the people coming home from the war would have gone and taken over whichever job they could have.
It's possible in the 40s, yeah. But I'm almost closely know that it's closer to around the 1930s, shortly before, shortly after, supposedly all the gold was declared. I mean, all the gold and silver were submitted. Right. So it had to take place around there, because Roosevelt went about usurp the entire court system. He did that. So I know it was around that time. I just don't know precisely when, but that's when it really took place. So that is the responsibility of the notaries. And the notaries can, again, going back into having three or more notaries, they can actually have court. And they also have enforcing power. They actually can take that order to the sheriff because the sheriff are only supposed to take orders directly from the courts. They're not to operate under any premise. And yet, you got the bankers are foreclosing on homeowners and they're using the sheriff to do it. They're supposed to be under the direct guidance of they're supposed to be under the direct order of the court and not on the bankers. So what's going on here? So perhaps our sheriff department became a private security force because under no circumstances should the sheriff be taking any orders from anyone else other than a court-appointed judge or elected judge. But basically, that order must come directly from a sitting judge or judges. And yet they are out there pretty much like I would say, like a mafia, that sends their bodyguards to kick in doors, and that's, it's inappropriate for one. So there is so much blatant breaching of laws, of their procedure, of what the guidelines that were set for them to follow. And the only reason why that is because of flesh versus paper. And so that's where largely all of that is really taking place. And until we can correct that, they're going to continue to go the route they've been going and doing what they're doing, even though technically it really is, I mean, seriously, I mean, we're talking about various violations of laws. And so, I mean, it's just so enormous that at some point they would like to have immunity from that, but genocide, there is no immunity from genocide. So, and this is what's going on. So that has to be corrected. And the three checks and balances that the people have is the notaries, the grand jurors, and the jurors.